and burn.
Hey everybody, so tonight I would like to discuss the 1981 Australian film, and that is Alison's Birthday. Now, on the surface, you'd think you've seen this all before. You know what I mean? The movie starts off with Alison and a couple of her friends doing this sort of seance, sort of Ouija board thing that they've got with a bunch of letters, I'm guessing from Scrabble or some shit. And they're using a cup on a table to sort of spin around. And at this point, some entity takes over one of Alison's friends and warns her to stay away from them on her 19th birthday. It isn't too descriptive. We're not sure who she's supposed to avoid necessarily come her 19th birthday. But this being that has possessed her friend is telling her specifically to watch out for them when she turns 19. Now at this point, of course, Alison's like 16 or so. And what happens is the possession ends up knocking over a bookcase on her friend and killing her. So this is a pretty traumatic experience for Alison that, of course, Alison does not forget. But, I mean, to be fair, she doesn't really listen to the message. Like, you know, watch out when you turn 19. Because she's a kid. So there's that. And I don't really know how much her age would play into it anyways, because if I got a message 3 years prior, no matter how old I was, I mean, 3 years is a long time to remember something a demon that killed your friend told you, right? So I can't really say that I blame her for sort of moving on. So what happens is Alison, her parents were killed back when she was a kid, and she ends up going to stay... Wait, no, is she living with her aunt and uncle? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. She ends up staying at her aunt and uncle, Jenny and Dean's house. And her boyfriend, Pete, and them don't really get along. They definitely don't like Pete because her aunt and uncle are the people that the possession demon at the start of the movie were warning Alison about. And one of the things I didn't get about this movie that would happen every so often is it would say Alison at an age. Alison at 16. Alison at 19. And it didn't make much sense to me. I thought maybe they're just doing this, toss it in, maybe make it a little more technical in case you were confused about her age or whatever. Because her age, it's important, but it's not paramount or anything. It's not like the most important part of this movie isn't her age. Well, it is, but it isn't played out that way. So I thought that was a little odd. But then it's like, I mean, she never stood a chance. So she ends up at her aunt and uncle's place, and I mean, I feel really bad for Pete because he's like this totally young dude. He's invested in his girlfriend. He works at he works for a radio station. She works at a record store. It sounds like, you know, they got a good thing going. And then her aunt and uncle start putting up these roadblocks in front of him and her because, of course, they're attempting to manipulate their way into her life to get him out of her life so that they can use her for their satanic ritual that they so desperately need her for once she has turned 19. Fuck, dude. So she's introduced to, who is it there? That's right. So she's introduced to her Grandma Thorne, who's like this 100-year-old woman in her aunt and uncle's place with her. And at one point, Grandma Thorne ends up coming into Alison's room and she attempts to communicate something to her, but Grandma Thorne can't really talk all the best. So quickly, her aunt and uncle come in. They're like, "Oh, Grandma Thorne, what are you doing here, dude? Oh, you must have got lost. We're going to take you back to your bed now. Okay, have a good night, Alison." And that's that. You don't really think much of it. So the movie starts, you know, naturally, the movie comes and goes. The movie ends with a giant satanic ritual where Pete attempts to stop them from using Alison in it. And of course, Pete is killed. Poor Pete. You always feel bad for the boyfriend. Because I'd do the same thing if I was the boyfriend here too. I'd be giving my all, trying to save my chick as well. It's kind of futile here though. And the reason for that is because whoever the chick was that was inside of Grandma Thorne, well, she was the one that needed a new body. And so they took Alison's body. And that's why they were saying what her age was. Because Alison, after the ritual's over with, she wakes up. And then she kind of like looks at her hand and she sees she has the hand of like an old lady. And that's when it hits all of us that Alison is now the new Grandma Thorne. And that's why she was there this whole time. Because the evil chick that was the head of their cult, she took over young Alison's body and put young Alison in old Grandma Thorne's body. And that's how the movie ends, with Alison being completely trapped in this old woman's body. And it got me so good. And this movie is so rad. And it's like, I love the fashion. I love the attitude. I love how this movie was shot. I love how it reminds me of like Friday the 13th, even though it has nothing to do with that. I love how it sort of shares the same look. I love horror movies from the early 80s. And this, of course, being from the early 80s, has a very early 1980s look that I just love to death. So this movie was awesome. It was super fun. It was cool. It was exciting. It kept me guessing. And then, Jesus Christ, what they do to Alison in the end is just so completely brutal. And that's where I'm leaving it. So thank you so much for hanging out with me while I discuss the 1981 horror film, Alison's Birthday. Like always, if you like this review, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, please don't forget that the world is actually a better place because you're in it. Like always, I'm getting out of here because I'm starting to get hot. Have a good night.